Imagine yourself settling into a quiet, comfortable position. The kind where your body gradually softens and the world grows a little more distant. Tonight, we travel far back to a landscape shaped by frost, long winters, and a people whose lives were defined by endurance. Viking Scandinavia. A place where the days could be breathtakingly beautiful, but where survival required a steady rhythm of labor, caution, and community. In this gentle journey, you won't find the clashing swords or shouting warriors of popular imagination. Instead, you'll drift through the quieter truths, the smoke-filled homes, the weary morning routines, the constant effort to coax life from a harsh environment. This is the Viking world as most people actually lived it, slow, methodical, and shaped by the turning of seasons. You will walk through the longhouse at dawn, follow the daily rhythms of ordinary families, travel calmly across the sea with Leif Erikson, linger over archaeological mysteries, and sit among Viking leaders as they debate law and honor. Each segment flows softly into the next, carrying you deeper into a past filled with texture and quiet resilience. So allow your breathing to settle. Allow your mind to wander gently. And let us begin with the simple act of waking up in a world where the cold arrives before consciousness fully returns. The first sensation is not sound, but temperature. A thin, persistent chill presses against your skin, the kind that slips through blankets made of wool and skins. Inside the longhouse, the night's fire has burned down to a dim bed of embers. Its warmth lingers, but only faintly, like a memory fading at the edge of dawn. Above you, the air is thick with the familiar scent of smoke, soft, almost sweet at times, but ever present. Viking longhouses had no chimneys, only small holes or gaps along the roof beams, and so the smoke hangs in gentle layers, drifting and settling. As you breathe, you taste the remnants of last night's firewood. Birch, pine, perhaps a little driftwood if the store was low. You slowly sit up, surrounded by the quiet murmurs of other sleepers shifting beneath their blankets. Families slept close together not only for warmth, but for a sense of shared security. You can hear the soft snort of a tethered animal, maybe a goat or a cow kept inside during the colder months, because the warmth of their bodies helps fight the freezing night air. As your eyes adjust, the interior comes into view, the long central hearth stretching toward the far door, the wooden beams darkened by years of smoke, and the countless everyday objects hanging on pegs or tucked into corners. Tools, bundles of herbs, woven baskets, oiled leather sacks, all waiting to be put to use once more. Outside, the early morning light struggles to pierce through the narrow doorway. A faint gray glow hints at frost, perhaps even a thin crust of ice forming on water buckets left near the entrance. Your day begins long before comfort does. Someone stirs the fire, adding small pieces of wood, coaxing it back to life with practiced motions. A low crackle slowly turns into a gentle flame, spreading a warmth that is subtle but welcome. The smoke rises again, drifting toward the ceiling's beams. You rise, wrapping a cloak over your shoulders. The wool is rough against your skin, but reliable, made over countless hours of spinning and weaving. Many people in the longhouse have contributed to its creation. This was the rhythm of their lives, a cycle of making and repairing. Outside the door, the morning greets you with a cold that feels almost personal. The air is still. The world is quiet. A thin layer of frost coats the ground, crunching softly beneath your feet. The breath you exhale turns instantly to a pale cloud. Your tasks begin immediately. Someone must check on the animals, clean their stalls, ensure they have water, scrape away the frozen layer forming on the trough. Another person gathers whatever dry firewood can be found. The woodpile shrinks quickly in winter, and each piece is precious. Near the shoreline, you might see a small group maintaining a ship, even in the cold. The sea is life, and the vessels must always be kept ready. Their maintenance is a slow, repetitive process. Scraping away old tar, applying new pitch, tightening planks, checking ropes stiffened by the chill. Inside the longhouse, those who stayed behind turn to quieter tasks. Someone begins grinding grain on a stone quern, the rhythmic motion steady and almost meditative. The sound is soft, a repeated scraping that has marked countless mornings. Another sets to repairing a piece of clothing, mending a tear, reinforcing a seam. Wool work is never truly finished. Garments constantly need care to withstand the cold. The longhouse slowly fills with a gentle domestic hum. The smell of warming porridge begins to mingle with smoke. Simple food, but reliable barley or oats softened over the fire, sometimes with a little dried fish or butter if the stores allow. As you eat, you feel the warmth spreading slowly through your chest, easing the tightness of the morning cold. Yet even this moment of rest is brief. The chores are endless in Viking Scandinavia, especially in winter. There is no sense of a free day or idle hours. Each task supports survival, and each neglected chore returns later as a harsher problem. You might be sent to help repair nets near the shoreline, your fingers gradually stiffening as you work with coarse materials. Or perhaps you gather with others to split logs, the axe striking the wood with steady muted thuds. Or you help prepare dried fish or cure meat, working carefully to preserve what little the season offers. Throughout the day, you notice something subtle. The calm acceptance in everyone's movements. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is dramatic. The pace is measured, steady, almost ritualistic. These people understand the frozen landscape around them. They know its demands. They work with it, not against it. As the pale sun climbs only a short distance above the horizon, its light cool and diffused, you feel the quiet weight of survival pressing upon you. Not in a frightening way, but in a persistent ambient way, like a constant reminder that comfort is always temporary here. And yet, within the longhouse there is warmth and community. You notice children playing with carved wooden toys. You observe older family members seated near the fire, sharing small stories or simply resting. Even chores are shared, creating a gentle rhythm that feels almost soothing despite the hardship. The smells of wool, smoke, wood, and simple food blend together into an atmosphere that is both rough and reassuring, a reminder of how people endured in this cold, demanding world. As the light fades again, the chores taper off. Evening brings a quieter energy. The fire crackles softly, illuminating the faces of those gathered close. You wrap yourself again in blankets, listening to the muffled sigh of wind brushing against the longhouse walls. Here, in the heart of Viking daily life, you understand why survival required more than strength. It required routine, endurance, and an unspoken understanding that every day was the same dance between cold, labor, and community. Drifting gently with these thoughts, we begin to leave the longhouse behind and shift our focus toward a very different kind of journey, one across open water, guided by determination and quiet resilience. Imagine the longhouse fading slowly behind you, its warmth retreating as the chilled morning air returns. Now, instead of the stillness of winter fields and the crackle of hearth fires, picture the quiet, rhythmic presence of the sea. The shoreline stretches out before you, shaped by centuries of tides. The water is cold, glassy in the dawn light, and endlessly patient. The Viking world was bound to the ocean. Roads were few, forests thick, mountains rugged. But the sea was a highway, a companion, and at times a gentle adversary. It carried people not only across distances but also across possibilities. In this soft, steady atmosphere, we begin to drift into the story of Leif Erikson, a figure often remembered for daring exploration, but whose journey westward was shaped just as much by silence, routine, and the long contemplative stretches that fill a sailor's days. This is not the tale of heroism often told in hurried summaries, but a slower, quieter version. The story as it might have felt to live through it. You find yourself standing near a sturdy Viking ship, its curved silhouette familiar and reassuring. The hull is coated in tar that catches the faint morning light, giving the wood a dark, subtle sheen. Ropes coil neatly like sleeping serpents. The sail is furled tight, its wool thick and slightly rough beneath your fingertips. Leif prepares for the journey with the same calm discipline that shapes all Viking labor. There is no rush, no dramatic farewell. Supplies are checked and rechecked. Barrels of water and ale are secured near the center of the deck. Bundles of dried fish, hard bread, and preserved meats are tucked away carefully. Wool cloaks, tools, spare rope, and simple weapons, mostly for protection against the unexpected, are arranged with quiet precision. When the moment comes, the ship is eased into deeper water with steady, cooperative effort. The sea accepts it without flourish. As the sail unfurls and the wind fills it, there is a soft creak of wood, a gentle push, and the shore begins to drift backward, slowly shrinking into a thin line of land and memory. Out at sea, the world changes. The horizon expands into a vast, uninterrupted curve. The air tastes of salt and possibility. The soundscape becomes minimal. The low hum of wind across the sail, the splash of oars dipping into water when the breeze weakens, the occasional murmur of the crew. For long stretches of time, nothing happens at all. And yet within this nothingness a certain clarity emerges. Life aboard a Viking ship is a series of small routines. Someone checks the ropes for wear. Someone repairs a loose plank with simple tools. Others take turns at the oars, pulling with quiet, practiced strength. The sailors speak in low tones, conserving energy, mindful of the vastness around them. Leif moves among the crew with the calm steadiness of a leader used to long journeys. His decisions are deliberate, never hurried. He measures distance not in miles, but in days, in shifts of wind, and the subtle shades of clouds gathering along the horizon. At night, the world becomes a soft dome of stars. The sea is darker but not menacing, just endless, gently rocking the ship in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. The crew sleeps in short intervals, wrapped in cloaks, bodies adjusting instinctively to the motion. The cold is persistent, but the shared presence offers a small, reassuring warmth. Storms come eventually, as they always do. But even the storms of Viking voyages are quieter when experienced in this calmer retelling. The sky darkens, the wind rises. The waves grow, their crests folding into soft white foam. The ship tilts and steadies, in an ancient pattern the crew understands deeply. They brace ropes, tighten knots, adjust the sail. No shouts, no panic. Only the rhythmic discipline of people who have lived their lives beside the sea. The storm passes with a gradual easing of wind, as though exhaling its final breath. The sea becomes calm again, gently rolling, as if apologizing for its earlier restlessness. As days stretch on, boredom becomes a companion. But boredom, in this world, is not a burden, it is a gentle state of existence. Time blurs. The crew hums quiet songs, works on small repairs, or simply sits in silence, staring at the horizon. Seabirds occasionally appear, gliding effortlessly above the ship, hinting at land somewhere beyond sight. Leif, thoughtful and patient, studies the sky, the drift of the wind, the flight patterns of birds. His journey is not about conquest or glory, it is about exploration, about a steady curiosity that guides him ever westward. As it grows clearer, the crew gathers quietly, their expressions calm rather than triumphant. The land is gentle, rolling with forests and open spaces. Streams of fresh water cut through the terrain. Wild grapes, berries, and new timber promise resources unknown to their homeland. This new place feels peaceful, untouched, waiting. Leif and his crew move ashore cautiously but without fear. They observe, they gather small samples, they walk along the coastline. The air smells different, fresh, layered with the scent of unfamiliar trees. The ground feels softer beneath their boots. There is a quiet harmony to the scene. They call it Vinland. Not with pomp, not with ceremony, just a simple word carried on soft voices. A name meant to describe, not to dominate. They stay for a time, building temporary shelters, exploring gently. The days pass slowly, filled with small tasks. Collecting firewood, repairing the ship, noting the rhythms of the local land. Nights are long and soft, the stars slightly different from the ones at home, yet still comforting. When Leif finally decides it is time to return, it is not with reluctance or excitement, but with a steady acceptance. The ship is loaded, the crew prepares, and once more sail meets wind. The journey back mirrors the journey out, quiet endurance. Slow days, gentle rhythms, and long stretches of contemplation. In this calm, measured way, the story of Leif Erikson's voyage unfolds not as a dramatic conquest, but as a peaceful, thoughtful exploration shaped by the steady embrace of the sea. As the familiar coastline of home gradually reappears, a deeper understanding settles in. The Vikings lived not only by strength and grit. Imagine the sea fading quietly behind you, its steady rhythm dissolving into a different kind of stillness, an earthly stillness shaped by soil, wood, and the weight of forgotten centuries. We're stepping into the world of archaeology, where the past reveals itself not through stories told aloud, but through objects patiently waiting beneath layers of earth. The Oseberg ship rests in this quiet realm. To truly appreciate it, imagine yourself walking across a gentle Norwegian landscape. The air feels cool, crisp, lightly scented with damp grass. The hills roll softly, and in the distance, you see the faint glimmer of water reflecting a muted sky. There is nothing dramatic here, just a calm, expansive openness that seems to slow the breath. Somewhere beneath this ground, for over 1,000 years, a ship slept. The Oseberg Mound was once just another rise in the landscape, its secrets sealed by time. But beneath its grassy surface, an extraordinary vessel waited, a ship carved with such care, such detailed craftsmanship, that even in its silence, it speaks. Picture the moment of its discovery in the early 1900s. Archaeologists working with careful, deliberate movements. Each handful of soil removed not with excitement, but with a quiet reverence. Tools scraping softly, brushes sweeping dust from wooden curves revealed little by little. It must have felt like waking a sleeping giant as the ship's darkened hull slowly emerged into the light after centuries of darkness. But we're not here to linger on the excavation. Instead, let's imagine the ship as it was before it ever touched the soil. A graceful vessel, long and sweeping, built of oak planks carved and fastened with meticulous precision. Its prow rises elegantly, curling into a spiral that reflects not aggression but artistry. The carvings, interwoven patterns, serpents, abstract forms move across the wood like frozen waves, each line the result of patient hands guided by tradition. This ship was not just a tool. It was a statement of craft, of culture, of something deeply significant to the people who created it, and yet it was never meant to sail. The Oseberg ship was destined for the earth, not the sea. Imagine the scene around the year 834 as preparations unfold for a burial unlike any other. You find yourself standing among people dressed in finely woven garments, their movements slow and purposeful. The air carries the scent of freshly cut wood and wildflowers gathered for the ceremony. The ship is placed in a trench dug deep into the earth. Its hull rests securely, the curve of its timbers supported by soil. Around it, people work with quiet focus, bringing objects meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. The burial was for 2 women, one elderly, one younger. Who they were remains a mystery, and part of the ship's allure lies in that uncertainty. Perhaps they were nobles, leaders, priestesses. Perhaps their lives carried a spiritual significance lost to time. But what remains clear is the care with which they were honored. Consider the items carefully placed around them. A beautifully carved wooden cart, its panels covered in intricate designs. Sledges decorated with patterns that mirror the ship's own flowing shapes. Bed frames, chests, woven tapestries, many in colors that must have once been vibrant, now faded to softer tones. Household tools, symbolic objects, and the remains of animals, likely chosen for ritual reasons. Nothing was random. Every object carried meaning in a language that has slipped from human memory. As you imagine these items arranged inside and around the ship, notice how gently the scene unfolds. There is no rush. People move methodically, placing each object with quiet respect. Their expressions are calm, touched by solemnity, but not overwhelmed. Death in the Viking world was not only an ending but also a transition, marked by rituals that blended practicality with belief. The air is still. The only sounds are soft footsteps on grass, the low murmur of voices, the distant call of birds, a ceremony without spectacle, yet rich in symbolism. The ship becomes a chamber of memory, a vessel carrying lives, stories, and hopes for the journey beyond. Once everything is placed, the mound begins to rise. Earth is moved with a steady rhythm, covering the ship inch by inch. The wood disappears, then the objects, then the contours of the vessel itself. Eventually, all that remains is a gentle hill, indistinguishable from others across the landscape. And there the ship rested for over a millennium. Sealed in stillness, preserved by the unique conditions of clay and soil, waiting for the distant day when curious hands and careful minds would reveal it once more. When archaeologists uncovered the ship, they found wood softened by age, but still carrying the delicate marks of tools used centuries before. They found patterns carved into beams and posts that spoke of artistry rarely matched. They found lingering hints of textiles, colors long past their prime yet echoing the beauty they once held. And most of all, they found silence. A silence that invites reflection rather than revelation, because even now, so much remains uncertain. Why this ship? Why such elaborate carvings? Why 2 women? Why such an abundance of grave goods, arranged with such intention? Archaeologists propose theories, rituals, significance, symbolic leadership, a merging of politics and spirituality, but no answer is definitive. The Oseberg ship remains a calm reminder that the past does not always offer clarity. Sometimes it offers only quiet wonder. As you imagine the ship today, carefully preserved in a museum space filled with soft lighting and hushed voices, notice how its presence feels almost peaceful. People stand before it not in awe of power, but in appreciation of its quiet beauty. The curves, the carvings, the craftsmanship, each detail invites stillness. It is a vessel that never traveled the seas, yet crossed 1,000 years of time, not through movement, but through memory. As we leave the Oseberg ship behind, we shift from the world of the dead to the world of the living, toward a gathering place where voices rose softly, where decisions were made not by swords but by words. Whenever you're ready, we will step into the thing, the Viking assembly, where leaders guided society through calm debate and communal judgment. Leaving the quiet dimness of the burial mound, we step into a different kind of gathering. This one isn't marked by ritual silence, but by voices carried on the wind. Imagine a broad grassy field, framed by low hills and soft patches of wildflowers. The air is cool yet pleasant, and the sky stretches out in a muted blue that feels both vast and comforting. This is the setting of the thing, the Viking assembly. It's not a chaotic crowd or a battle-worn camp, as stories often suggest. Instead, it's a communal meeting held in open space, shaped by shared expectations and slow, deliberate decision-making. As we walk closer, we see people gathering from nearby farms, small settlements, and the distant valleys. Some arrive on foot, others lead horses. A few carry simple banners or staffs carved with family symbols. Yet the feeling isn't one of tension or conflict, but of routine. It feels like attending an important seasonal event that everyone understands intimately. The thing was, in many ways, the steady heartbeat of Viking social order. It was a place where agreements were made, disputes settled, and leaders held accountable. A place where the law wasn't imposed from above, but spoken aloud, repeated, remembered, and carried collectively. As we settle into this imagined crowd, we notice the gentle hum of conversation. Small groups stand together, exchanging news, discussing the weather, sharing quiet gossip, or comparing the condition of their livestock. The tone is unhurried, practical. At the center sits the law speaker, a respected figure whose primary role isn't to command, but to recite. He carries centuries of oral tradition in his memory. There's something soothing in the way he speaks, slow, measured, with a deliberate cadence that makes each phrase feel grounded. He chants the laws not for drama, but for clarity, for the benefit of a community that relies on shared understanding rather than written codes. As he speaks, people listen, not with rapt attention, but with a quiet familiarity. Some nod gently. Others stand with arms crossed, absorbing the words as if listening to the steady flow of a river they've known all their lives. This recitation wasn't just a formality. It was a reaffirmation of their world, a verbal anchor in a society without endless books and documents. Then, disputes are brought forward. A boundary disagreement between two farmers. A question of property inheritance. A matter involving damaged goods or a broken agreement. Nothing sensational, just the everyday conflicts that emerge when people live close together. One by one, individuals present their side. Their voices are even, their language polite. There are no loud accusations or emotional outbursts. Instead, each person presents their viewpoint with calm practicality, knowing that the assembly prefers clarity over passion. Passion was seen as a sign of a weak argument, whereas a calm, reasoned case demonstrated honor and control. The crowd murmurs occasionally, not in judgment, but in collective processing, weighing the words they hear. Leaders, often chieftains or respected elders, step forward to offer guidance. But they do not command. They suggest, they reason, they reference custom. Their authority isn't absolute but rooted in trust, reputation, and tradition. They are influential because they have proven themselves wise and fair, not because they can force others to obey. A chieftain's power was a fragile thing, constantly being negotiated and reinforced. Gift-giving plays a quiet but crucial role here. These aren't bribes, but tokens of goodwill, perhaps a carved comb, a fine whetstone, or a share of a recent hunt. These gifts reinforce bonds and remind everyone that leadership depends on reciprocity, not fear. A chieftain who didn't give generously, who failed to maintain harmony, would find his influence quietly diminishing. His followers would simply stop listening. his authority fading away like morning mist. As decisions begin to form, you can sense the subtle weight of consensus. No single person dictates the outcomes. The crowd listens, considers, and leans gently toward an agreement. It's a slow, organic process. Once an understanding is reached, the law speaker or a local leader recites it aloud, confirming the resolution for all to hear. The tone remains calm, almost ritualistic. People nod, satisfied. The matter quietly dissolves into the background, resolved not by force, but by the slow, cooperative machinery of the thing. This was justice as a communal act. Throughout the day, more matters arise. Trade agreements are negotiated. Marriage arrangements are finalized, joining families and securing alliances. Discussions turn to travel plans for summer expeditions, where to raid, where to trade. Updates are shared about regional dangers or shifts in alliances with neighboring groups. Yet even in these crucial conversations, the pace remains unhurried. The Viking world could be harsh and violent, but its political heart was surprisingly measured, anchored in spoken law and community presence, rather than rigid institutions. It was a system built for people who had to live and work together long after the assembly ended. Let's take a moment to observe the leaders more closely. Their authority is subtle, built from a lifetime of cultivating reputation, demonstrating generosity, and offering wisdom. They listen more than they speak. They nod thoughtfully, consult with others, and offer suggestions shaped by years of experience. They are facilitators, not dictators. If a disagreement grows tense, the assembly doesn't descend into chaos. Instead, elders gently intervene, slowing the pace of the discussion, urging reflection. The thing was a place where honor mattered deeply, but so did restraint. Losing one's temper didn't demonstrate strength. It signaled a lack of discipline, a weakness that others would note. As the day drifts on, the formal proceedings begin to soften. The assembly becomes a blend of governance and social gathering. People share food they've brought: smoked fish, hearty bread, cheese, and dried meat. Children, who had been playing at the edges of the crowd, now wander more freely. Some people recline on grassy patches, listening casually to ongoing discussions while enjoying the open air. The boundaries between law, politics, and community life are porous and comforting. This wasn't just a court. It was a festival, a market, and a family reunion all rolled into one. It was the social glue that held their world together. Eventually, as the sun begins to lower, the final matters are addressed. The law speaker closes the proceedings with a last recitation, his voice steady and unbroken. Leaders exchange farewells, firm handshakes, and nods of respect. Small groups disperse, walking slowly toward home, the echo of the day's decisions carried quietly with them. The field empties gradually, returning to silence. Only the soft impressions of footprints remain in the grass, temporary marks that will fade with the next rain. The thing leaves no dramatic monuments, no carved stones or grand halls like the Romans did. Its legacy is more subtle. It lives in memory, in spoken agreements, and in the way these communities maintained order through cooperation and measured debate. As we move away from this ancient assembly, the landscape seems even quieter, as if holding the imprint of centuries of calm, thoughtful governance. We've journeyed through the smoky warmth of the Longhouse, sailed across patient seas, uncovered the silent mysteries of the burial mounds, and now stood among the voices of the Thing. Each place reveals a different facet of the Viking world, one far more complex and human than the simple stories of raiders and warriors. It was a world of family, tradition, law, and community. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found this glimpse into the past as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more explorations into history. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the final part. As the last traces of the Viking assembly fade from view, imagine yourself standing once more in the quiet landscape that has carried you through this journey. The air settles around you with a soft stillness, as though the world has exhaled. The sky above stretches wide and muted, the land gently rolling toward the horizon. In this moment, the centuries feel closer than you might expect, and yet far enough away to soften into memory. You have walked through the Viking world not as the sagas often portray it, but as most people lived it, slowly, rhythmically, quietly. You woke inside a longhouse filled with smoke and wool, where warmth was shared, and chores were endless but familiar. You felt the weight of winter mornings and the comfort of communal life, shaped by cycles of work that continued with dependable certainty. The air, thick with the smell of burning wood and damp earth, was a constant reminder of the simple, unyielding realities of survival. Each day began not with a call to arms, but with the quiet necessity of tending the fire, feeding the livestock, and preparing for the hours ahead. This was life in its most fundamental form, a rhythm dictated by the sun and the seasons. A shared existence where every hand had a task and every task had a purpose. You drifted across open seas with Leif Erikson, moving not through heroic storms or battles, but through steady days marked by wind, waves, and the soft, patient passing of time. His journey westward unfolded not in bold leaps, but in small moments of observation and careful judgment, guided by nature's subtle cues. Imagine the creak of the timber, the rhythmic slap of waves against the hull, the taste of salt on the air. Days would bleed into one another, distinguished only by the changing light on the water or the flight of a distant seabird. Navigation wasn't about grand charts, but about feeling the swell of the ocean, reading the clouds, and knowing the stars. It was a journey of immense patience, a slow and deliberate progression across a vast, empty expanse, where the destination was less a certainty and more a whispered promise on the horizon. You stepped gently into the past through the Oseberg ship, an object shaped by care, craftsmanship, and reverence. A vessel buried not for travel, but for meaning. Its silent woodwork told a story not of conquest, but of memory, of mystery, and of a cultural language now softened into fragments. As you trace its elegant lines in the dim museum light, you can almost feel the hands that carved the intricate animal heads, the minds that designed its perfect, flowing form. This wasn't just a boat. It was a tribute, a final resting place for someone of great importance, filled with objects meant to accompany them into the next world. It speaks of a deep connection to artistry, to symbolism, and to the profound mysteries of life and death. The ship's silence is powerful, a testament to a culture that valued beauty and ritual as much as strength. And you stood among the quiet crowd of the thing, a gathering where words, not weapons, shaped society. Where leaders led not with fear, but with listening. Where decisions emerged from calm debate, from shared customs, from mutual respect woven through generations. Picture the scene, a circle of people gathered on a low hill, the air crisp and clear. Laws are recited from memory, disputes are settled, and community bonds are reaffirmed. This was the heart of Viking governance, a system built on participation and consensus. It shows a world where order was maintained not by a king's decree, but by the collective will of the people, where a person's word held weight and justice was a shared responsibility. It was a slow, deliberate process, a foundation of stability in a world often perceived as chaotic. Across each of these scenes, the Viking world revealed itself not as a realm defined by violence or dramatic adventure, but as one held together by patience, cooperation, and steady endurance. A world where survival depended on rhythm more than rage, on community more than conquest. The true strength of these people was not in their axes, but in their ability to work together, to endure harsh winters, to navigate treacherous seas, and to build societies that lasted for centuries. Their lives were a testament to resilience, a quiet strength born from necessity and nurtured by tradition. As you reflect gently on this journey, notice how the layers of history settle into something soft and reassuring. These people who faced colder mornings and harder labor than most of us ever will moved with a deliberate pace that, oddly, feels soothing now. Their lives were demanding, but their routines were grounding, shaped by the certainty of season, task, and tradition. There was a comfort in that predictability, a sense of place and purpose that came from knowing your role within the larger community and the natural world. Let the longhouse fire fade into a warm glow in your mind. Let the sound of waves against the ship become a slow, steady pulse, like a distant heartbeat. Let the intricate carvings of the Oseberg ship blur softly in the dim museum light. Let the murmured voices of the thing drift into a gentle, indistinguishable hum. The past, in all its distance, becomes a blanket of quiet details, textures, and echoes that cradle the mind, soothing its sharp edges. Allow these images to soften, to lose their definition, becoming impressions rather than clear pictures. As the last traces of Viking Scandinavia dissolve into the calm of the present moment, feel your body settling. The rhythm of their world may begin to mirror your own breathing, slow, steady, unhurried. The kind of rhythm that invites rest. Feel the rise and fall of your chest, a simple, ancient pattern of life. The harshness of their lives stands in gentle contrast to the comfort of yours, the secure walls around you, the warmth that requires no fire tending, the softness of your bed, free from winter frost, the silence of your space, peaceful and predictable. Acknowledge this comfort, this safety. It is a gift of your time, a luxury they could scarcely imagine. Let gratitude for this simple peace wash over you, a quiet wave of contentment. There are no chores waiting at dawn, no seas to cross, no disputes to settle. There is only this moment, here and now, a space for rest. Let these thoughts settle like drifting embers in a dying fire. Let them fade softly into stillness, leaving behind only a feeling of warmth and tranquility. Your journey through Viking Scandinavia is complete. And now, you may allow yourself to drift, just as their longships drifted across quiet seas guided only by calm winds and the slow, deep pull of sleep.